Hello, welcome to another video. I've struggled to get a few out just because I had the storage problem. But today, from the title, we're going to be going through my all of the Radiohead albums, and I'm going to be ranking them from least to most favorite. Um, first of all, before I get into anything like that, I just want to put out right that these albums, right, are all masterpieces, alright? There's not one bad one. There might be the odd bad song, alright? Might be the odd bad single or B-side from the EP. But there is no bad album. I'm not criticizing, well, I am criticizing them, but I'm not calling them bad albums when I'm ranking them. Just remember that. Right, we're getting to the first album. So in ninth place, and it was always coming, it's most people's least favourite, it's Pablo Honey. For me, Pablo Honey, it was an album that Radiohead made after the overwhelming success after the Creep single. Well, not really after, but like, it was released after, and it must have been a bit, But, the album, basically, there's some brilliant songs on there, isn't there? Blow Out, Anyone Can Play Guitar. Rip, Corn and Vegetable are both underrated, stuff like that, right? And then you've got the likes of Stop Whispering, which I think is one of Radiohead's worst songs in their choreography. Actually, their worst song, not counting Interludes, right? But yeah, for me, it's got this nice grunge sounding kind of thing. Debut album, not a really good debut album, right? And I think it overplayed a lot of the songs. So that's basically the only reason, really, why that's there. Move on to the 8th place. 8th place, we have. Now, this is going to be a bit more controversial. This is 8th place is Amnesiac. Now, Amnesiac, it's an album which it was basically just songs that didn't make Kid A. And I think that Amnesiac has a very distinctive sound, and so does Kid A, so it's just the kind of thing whether you prefer Amnesiac or Kid A or whatever. I definitely prefer Kid A, right? Kid A, like... I mean, songs on there, right, on Amnesiac are one of my favourite Radiohead songs of all time, right? You and Whose Army, which I've decided is my favourite Radiohead song ever. Pyramid Song, which is widely popular. I really like it, obviously. And, stuff like Crushed Sardines. Is it Crushed Sardines in a Ting Punk, whatever? And, but then you have the likes of, like, Hunting Bears, right? Pull Revolving Doors, which I wouldn't even consider them songs, really. They have no use to the sound of Amnesiac, really. I mean, Pull Revolving Doors I can kind of, but Hunting Bears, my little brother could play. I'm gonna be really harsh on Radiohead here. But like, come on. And yeah, it's just another one of those experimental coming out of the alt rock stages after the success of OK Computer. Tom York made all these really weird sounding songs. And you know what? It works on people. It's worked on me. I really like Amnesiac. Again, don't get me wrong. But it doesn't top the other albums, Just woke up, and as I'm trying to edit the video, annoyingly, my Moon-shaped pool one didn't feature for some reason, even though I've recorded it and everything. So I'm just going to do a quick summary now. Moon-shaped pool, Radiohead's Closure, and what a closure it was. And, the reason why it's here is just primarily because I didn't really dive into it that much. I had my listen throughs, and I think the first time I listened to Moonshaped Pool, I wasn't really listening to it. I was focused on some game I was playing on Roblox, so I think I was just more focused on my podcast tycoon, priorities, people. And so, yeah, and I listened to it a few other times, but then I didn't really get fully through it. But then there is just one song which I, fully connect with. I say it's not very connecting, but there's one song on there which I really connect to, and it's the closure of the closure. It's True Love Waits. You know, True Love Waits is you know, the song that we waited ages for to be on the record, right? And you know, people always fight over which one's better, you know, the live acoustic version or the studio version. I personally don't know. I mean, if I were to be asked like all the time, I'd probably go live version, just because it's more raw, it's more emotional, it's more distorted. I'd say I like distorted songs sometimes. It's just an excuse because my songs aren't very high quality. But you know, it's money, by the way, guys. Don't you know? Anyway, yeah, Moonshaped Pool. You know, there's some underrated tracks on there. You know, like one of my personal favorites, Tinker, Tailor, Rich Man, Beggar Man, Thief Man, whatever. You know, so it's one of my personal favorites, and I don't know the name, right? But you know, you get the idea. You know what song I'm talking about. There's no other song name like it, right? Staring down at this camera. And you know, Glass Eyes, which is a lot of people's favorite. This is an album which, you know, it's the statistically, factually, scientifically Radiohead's most gloomy album. And you know, it's why I listen to it right now. I want to live the best life I possibly can, and I don't want to jump back into sad Radiohead albums. So I'll stick with my indie era right now. But you know, Focus. That's basically it. I didn't dive too much into it. I don't fully notice it that much. You know, it's one of the last albums that I think of when people mention Radiohead albums. Nothing too deep, nothing too personal. It's just that, like you get. Next on the tier list, this one's going to be the most controversial one of them all, right? It's the Bends, right? And it's probably the same as Pablo Honey, if I'm honest. I overplayed a lot of the songs. I used to listen to it, you know, day after day after day. But you know, it's such a good album that like I could play it every single day for a year for 365 days, and I could still, you know, listen to the songs such as Fake Plastic Trees. I think I've lost a bit of an interest into other ones, so like Bulletproof I Wish It Was. It's an alright track, but again I overplayed it. And Nice Dream, which is a lot of people's favourites, right? You know, sorry, but yeah. You know, Fake Plastic Trees is one of Radiohead's best songs. You know, it's a masterpiece. Right, it's probably my favourite off the album. And again, that might spark some controversy because it's all mainstream and stuff. But when like people, you know, they like the songs maybe Let Down, right, Creep, No Surprises, Fake Plastic Trees, and you like criticise them for it, you don't know that song might have saved their life, you know. And you know. That's my record player just ringing at me. Someone plugged in, what the fuck? Anyway. Yeah, it kind of sums up the Bends. And it really confuses me. It's a really interesting thing. That you can have songs such as Bulletproof I Wish I Was, like, and Just. And they're both on the same album, but they're both very different songs, but they both slot into the album perfectly, right? You know, Radiohead have had this thing where they're really good at, making songs that fit a certain aesthetic. So you can listen to a Radiohead song and you know what album that belongs to, and they've done really well in that. You know, every song on Hail to the Thief sounds like it'd be on Hail to the Thief. Every song on Amnesiac, like I just said, it has a distinctive sound, a very small difference to Kid A, but it has its own distinctive sound, I think. And I think the cover plays a part in that as well, because I listened to the music, remember the cover, because it you know, is my first impression of the album, you know, so I always think of the cover. It's why I criticised Is This It by The Strokes when I first listened to it, because I looked at the cover and it was all really grey and stuff, not that the man was Strokes, no pun in. Actually, that's probably why they did it, isn't it? But you know, we're stroking the woman's arse. But it just looked grey and it just looked boring. And I listened to it and that was my first impression of it. But I listened to it the second time. Now I think this is what people need to do. listening to albums, you need to listen to it a second time to get a full opinion on it. And I've listened to these albums like countless times, right? Even a Moonshaped Pool I've listened to like 9 times, right? No, 9th album, 9 times. Yeah, I went a bit off course there, but that again sums up the bands. You know, that's it. The next one I kind of needed to think about before because it's really confusing, but it's Hail to the Thief. Hail to the Thief is a really good album. I really like the album. It's one of my favorites, right, at one point. But you know, I realized when I listened to the album again, like about my 5th listen it, and I realized that it's like there's no in between with Hail to the Thief. It's either a really, really good song or just a bad song, right? So you have the likes of There, Mixomatosis, Wolf at the Door, 2 + 2 = 5, which I think is better on the live recording edition, but I'll get to that later. And you have, you know, the likes of I Will, which is a bit, don't get me wrong, I like I Will, but it's just, you know, it's there. I don't like We Suck Young Blood. I don't like, what's it called? I always forget the name of this song. Sit Down, Stand Up's a bit mid. I'm sorry. You know, it grew on me. I used to hate the song, but it grew on me a bit, and then it's just gone. You know, it's one of those things. Sorry. And what was it? Sail to the Moon. That's another one. I don't really like that one either. And then you have like, you know, the middle category, like Drunk Punch. Was it Punch Up at a Wedding? You know, Scatterbrain. You know. Alright songs, just not enough, you know, to musically turn me on that much. And yeah, and then you have, I get like the live recording version. A lot of the songs on there are better in live recordings, such as 2 + 5, which is also better at Ill's Call, which is on the single EP album. And I Will, with Tom's high voice instead of really gloomy, you know, dark voice. And yeah, well, it's Mixomatosis. I think it's better live as well. It's more like, you know, energetic. You can tell in Tom's voice he's just like, you know, and instead of the gloomy voice, you know, well, not a gloomy voice, but like a more darker version. You know, something about Mixomatosis at the end of the day. I think there's better on Studio Edition. Just because they didn't really change anything in live edition, that's the thing. And yeah, that kind of sums up Hail to the Thief for me. It's good albums, you know. 4, now this is, you know, it's, you know, the most popular album. It's OK Computer. Like, OK Computer, a lot of Radiohead fans really like it. I really like it. But it's never been, you know, it's always been viewed as if you like this album, if it's your favourite, you're a poser, which I disagree with like 100%. You know, you can't just go around, you know, calling people posers because they're like OK Computer, which you might not know why. Like OK Computer, like I said before in that analogy, but their favourite song might be, you know, The Tourist, right? You know, Tourist is probably one of the best on their albums. Like, you know, and there's songs on there which, you know, is a bit, you know, I've never been a big fan of Let Down, you know, I'll say it, but I don't want to sound like performative, you know, I'm not Radiohead fan, you know, but I do think like Creep's a masterpiece is what I tried to say by accident. Creeps. Creep is a masterpiece, along with No Surprises, along with a lot of their most popular songs. And you know, OK Computer, you know, Paranoid Android, one of the songs on there, one of the best Radiohead songs ever. No Surprises, one of Radiohead's most popular. You know, and there's some underrated songs on there, don't get me wrong, like I brought up earlier, The Tourist, Lucky, Electioneering, which people always view as Radiohead's worst song. I have no clue why. Although, I mean, I have the moments where I don't like it, where like I love what I say. Like it's energetic, like it's fun, but it's boring at the same time, and I don't know how that happened. Like, you know, songs like Subterranean and Home Alien, you know, they're, you know, all round it's a really good album. Radiohead's most popular, and I can see why it's just not the best album in my opinion. You know, there's more which should be more popular. You know, podium place now. Now third place is an album that everyone was expecting to hear earlier, like at ninth place. And it's King of Limbs. You know, King of Limbs I think is severely underrated. Call me a performative all you want, but it's one of my favourites. You know, I can get why people don't like Codex or Give Up the Ghost or something. I mean, I don't understand why Give Up the Ghost is a hated song. I really like it, but Give Up the Ghost. Oh no, sorry, I meant to say Morning Mr. Magpie. Morning Mr. Magpie is a hated song, and I don't know why. But like, I get songs like Give Up the Ghost, Separator, probably one of my favourites. Lotus Flower, you know, people say it's the only good song on King of Limbs. I haven't actually listened to King of Limbs, I don't think. But you know, it's another experimental album. The one after In Rainbows, which people viewed as, you know, a genre comeback, or which I think is absurd because, you know, Radiohead have changed genres on each of their albums. They all have their own alternative sound and aesthetic, you know. But you know, the reason why In Rainbows got on the Grammy is because it sounded more modern day, and then King of Limbs kind of went back earlier into their amnesia kind of thing, and people just thought, no, you know, why can't Radiohead make a power pop song, you know, like Weezer, which I like Weezer's power pop songs, but like fucking expecting them to fucking make some name. I don't know, they're not pop stars, guys, you know, they've always been electrical alt rock guys, just a group of people who, you know, like to use glockenspiels and synthesizers and stuff. Leave them alone, please. I kind of went a bit rogue there, but it's fine because we've got second place now. Second place is Kid A. Well, we all know it's first now, but I don't want to say it just because it doesn't feel right now. But Kid A, you know, it's one of Radiohead's more depressing albums. You know, I literally sat in that very bed and I just looked at my ceiling and just listened to the whole thing front to back, and just stared at myself and just thought, what the fuck? Made me question, like, you know, everything, right? Everything in its right place is one that does, you know, makes people question a lot of things, you know, famously. And, you know, it's like an unsettling album, and I've always felt it as an unsettling album, but it's also calming at the same time, and that's what brings out Kid A as a really good album. You know, it's, you know, like a ghostly kind of sound. You know, Tom York, after OK Computer went into a bit of a state, you know, started making like haunting rhythms, you know, in the studio, and came up with Kid A, which, like, you know, it's incredible, you know. It's home to one of Radiohead's saddest songs, two of them maybe, potentially, which is House Despair, completely a motion picture soundtrack. And again, there's a bunch of underrated songs on there, you know. Kid A, which I think is a really good song. Ain't even a robot talking, it's Tom York's voice, like, put into a bunch of special effects and made it sound robotic. And like, In Limbo, I think, is overly hated. I really like In Limbo. Untitled is a good instrumental because it's not too long, and that's, you know, with my music, I make music, and I just make instrumental tracks because I can't sing and I can't get a singer really. You know, if I'm making songs, I would like try and make them be under 3 minutes, you know, to the best of my ability, just because I don't want it to be too long. That's why I don't really listen to Tree Fingers, you know, just because it's a good instrumental, it's just a bit too long for me. You know, Untitled's perfect, Untitled version 1, Untitled version 2, you know, and perfect instrumentals for me. yeah, that's it. We'll move on to first place. Number one is a lot of people's favorite album, and it's my favorite album. It's In Rainbows, right? In Rainbows is, the switch. It's the album after Hail to the Thief, which like went from political stuff to more upbeat, sad songs. We learned that in 15 Step with there's a clapping and stuff, and children playing in the background, and it's talking about how he went wrong, which I really like these sad songs with like happy instruments or upbeat sounds. 15 Steps, House of Cards. House of Cards isn't neither sad or happy. It's a weird song, but it's brings out like an art pop version of Radiohead, which is why they got nominated for a Grammy. Because it had this poppy kind of sound to it, with 15 Step, Maybe We Reckon, a Jigsaw Fall in its place, and it's home to like my favorite Radiohead song. I'm gonna say my favorite Radiohead song ever. I usually have like really indecisive of my favorite Radiohead song, just because again they're really different, the songs and the albums. But it's Weird Fishes Arpeggi, home to masterpieces like Nude, Fast Art, which I believe is severely underrated, right? And even Disc 2 could have been one of Radiohead's best albums, with Last Flowers, Bankers and Mash, Go Slowly, which has taken off recently, as we all know. And it's incredible. It's got its own unique sound. The cover, tells the story of the album. The cover, I always really like albums when the cover sounds like the album, and that's what Radiohead have done. That's why Radiohead's probably one of my favourite bands. It's the most relatable band for me in the world, and because the covers speak for the albums. A lot of bands struggle with that, I think. Again, that's why I criticised Last Night, because the cover didn't match the songs, and I think they developed from that with my favourite Strokes album, which is the new Abnormal. I used to get confused whether it's the Great Abnormal or the new, but I think it's the New Abnormal, because of the California wildfires, and the guy came out and gave a speech and he was saying about the new abnormal. So it was probably that. But again, the cover speaks for the album. Ode to the Met, you can tell that it'd be on that album. But that's my point. And In Rainbows, just for me, it's incredible. It's the most anxiety relieving album for me. Weird Fishes being that song for it. Body Snatchers, and a lot of the songs on there, the demos might be a bit better. Jigsaw Fall into Place, Nude, which they kept from us for 10 years, right? I don't know whether I prefer the demo or not. They're both very different. It's like True Love Waits and Live in Oslo, the acoustic version, and on Moonshaped Pool, they're both different but the same. And I think True Love Waits on Moonshaped Pool and True Love Waits Live in Oslo are both sad in their own different way, but they're both the same. This is why Radiohead just really stands out to me. It's incredible. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that video. I just contemplated a lot of things during the recording, so I hope you enjoyed it. I don't actually know whether it'll be out or not, depending on my storage, but I hope it does, because I just spoke quite a lot, and I did a bike ride to, a town which is quite far away, right? And I did it in less than 3 hours. So that, these guys, if I'm not I'm a bit stuttering, I'm a bit shaky, I'm goodbye.